Hello students, welcome to week 5 for COM 430. This week we are looking at the topic of research ethics. You'll find this topic has a lot of relevant and very important information into the area of research and specifically for communication studies and anytime we're using human subjects. Week 5 tells us that we are reading chapter 4 in the Creswell text and the Cornell text, step 5. Both of these look at specifically ethical and research, ethical considerations when it comes to research. The Cornell text spends some time looking at, now that you have found some good sources, what you need to do in outlining all of the information you've been researching over the past 4 weeks. You'll also spend some time watching some videos on research ethics, what you need to know about that. You're completing 3 things this week. You have activity number 5 due on Sunday with discussion board number 5, your original post due Friday, and replies due on Sunday. And then you have an assignment related to training on handling human subjects within research projects. This is required in all of our research courses, so this is a university mandate. It's the NIH, the National Institute of Human Services, Human Subjects Training Activity. So you'll spend some time working on that. Specifically looking at that right now, the NIH Human Subjects Training Activity is something that all researchers must complete nationwide and actually worldwide, but this is the US version, to make sure that they understand the ethical treatment of human subjects. When you get through the course reading and videos and information on the training website this week, you'll understand why that is so important. Specifically, dating back to most recent, one of the most well-known documented cases is in the Nazi era of when Nazi Germany was spending time researching things and using human subjects for research in unethical ways, we'll just say that, and did not provide ethical treatment to those human subjects and did not allow them to have informed consent. So from that, there's been a huge push over the last 80 years or so to make sure that all researchers are and have received training in handling human subjects. And so what that means specifically is that you are trained in understanding how to conduct research that involves humans. So if your research is delivering a survey and you want to deliver that via social media about how people feel about specific things on social media or whatever it is your topic may be, that's using human subjects. So you need to have training related to that. So what you're going to do this week is you're going to go to the training website, which is listed in Blackboard. It's also listed on the slide. You'll go through everything that they want you to go through. It should take about an hour or so. Could be a little longer for those that need to spend a little more time understanding the material and a little less for those that do not need as much time. What you'll do is you'll complete their whole training course. Like I said, it takes about an hour. It's a free self-paced module. You may need to complete and create a login and an account with them, but everything's free. There's nothing you need to put in there in terms of payment or anything like that. When you complete the course, save the certificate. Screenshot it, save it as a PDF, do something and save it to your computer. And then afterwards, you're going to write a 300-word reflection using APA format that clearly states what you learned and what the most important things you found from the training on the ethical treatment of human subjects for communication research. You must submit a copy of the certificate to me within your assignment, either screenshot or scanned, so then that way I can submit it to the university so they know that you've gone through the communication research methods course and you've been properly trained if you chose to conduct research later on. So there's really 4 things you're doing. You're reviewing the free and complete self-paced module on the NIH website. You are saving your certificate of completion. You are then writing a 300-word reflection in APA format that tells me what you learned from this entire process and specifically related to the importance of ethical treatment of human subjects within communication research. And then you are submitting your reflection in Blackboard along with that copy of your certificate of completion. So do know that if you don't attach the certificate of completion in there, you will be deducted significant points. If you have any questions, let me know. Do know this is something you need to spend some time on early in the week, as it will take you a good hour or so. This activity should be completed after you've completed all of the reading on ethics and research and watched the videos. So let me know if you have any questions. Activity number 5 asks you to start working on an outline for your literature review. So if you are looking at the progress and the pacing of this course, you'll see that we began with coming up with a topic for our critical assignment. We then after that developed a source list of some sources we found were relevant. So we built upon that information. And then last week we built upon that information even further by developing an annotated bibliography based off of the source list that we had submitted in weeks prior. This week what we're doing is we're creating an outline for our literature review. So we will be creating a thematic literature review. That means we're going to organize our sources into relevant themes and write about them in a narrative fashion. So what I want you to do this week is to create an outline. So a bulleted list outline of what you think your literature review should look like at this point. You need to have at least 2 to 3 clear themes. So what you will do is you'll take your sources, you'll look through them. Obviously you've read them all and you'll say, how can I put these into 2 or 3 similar groups? And those are your themes. Then once you get them into your 2 or 3 similar groups, you'll title them, and those will be your themes. So for example, I completed my dissertation and my research and my doctoral program on how families adjust to the news of receiving an autism diagnosis for a child, how parents and families react to that. Some of the themes I had in my literature dealt with the history of autism, and dealt with trends in autism therapy, dealt with family, difficult conversations with family. So those are 3 themes right there I had in my literature review within my dissertation. So you'll do the same thing this week. You're going to look at your annotated bibliography, take some time and reflect, organize your sources into 2 or 3 groups, title that group, and then you have your 3 themes. So in your outline, what you need to create is a bulleted list of how you want to organize your literature review section for your critical assignment, which is a research proposal. In your outline, I am looking for this. I'm looking for 2 to 3 clear themes. I'm also looking for a brief list, not an exhaustive list by any means, of the types of sources you want to put in those themes. And then I want you to clearly tell me how you're going to open up your what your introduction might be like in your literature review section and what your conclusion is. I will give you a hint, and you'll see this in the Cornell text. There is some debate onto what is best practice for this, but typically in communication research, your research questions and your hypotheses are listed at the very end of your literature review. There is a really good guide in the Cornell text on pages 112 to 113 that will help you understand how to develop this further. And in fact, the entire Cornell text is developed with that in mind and helping you write a really stellar literature review for communication studies research. If you have any questions, let me know on this assignment early in the week. This will take you some time to develop, so I'm more than willing to meet with you if needed. Discussion board number 5 builds upon our NIH human subjects training. It asks you to discuss 3 ethical considerations for research that you learned from the training and or what you learned from your course reading on it. So we're really diving into 3 ethical considerations for communication research with human subjects that you learned this week. Your post should be at least 200 words, and you need to reply to at least 3 students with 100-word replies no later than Sunday. This post is due on Friday with replies due on Sunday. As we've already been discussing this term and this week with the instruction on our assignments, we've been looking at why research ethics is important. And so there are 4 things here that I think are important for us to realize and to look at when it comes to research ethics. Ethics within research is a reflection of respect for those who take part in volunteering to understand and help us understand and look at a phenomenon within communication. It ensures that no unreasonable or unsafe or thoughtless demands are made by researchers, and there is sufficient knowledge shared by all concerned. And it also imposes a common standard with all areas of research. When you get into actually implementing your research assignment, which we do not do in this class, it helps to know that all participants have to sign or consent to their participation in a study. It's known as informed consent. Informed consent is something we will get to in a little bit, but it helps with understanding why research ethics is important. It has become the norm and expectation for any research activity done in any discipline that there's a professional requirement, and that a requirement for access to participants in all areas, and that there is also always an external governing body overviewing and looking at the research process. Typically how that works within a university setting is that there is, and actually really in any kind of setting if you get to medical research in a hospital and such, is that there's usually an institutional review board, or we call it, we often use the acronym IRB. And the IRB is served as a group, a representative group of the faculty at a university. So it's a diverse group that has a number of faculty from many different disciplines that look at the research that is going to be conducted by the researcher, the investigator. And it's a proposal that you set. So essentially what you're turning in for your critical assignment is something that I would turn in to the Institutional Review Board if I wanted to conduct research after I created my own research proposal. I would also fill out an application and attach my NIH certificate to show that I've been trained in it, and then they'll look at it and determine if this is an ethical research study that the university consents to me completing and takes into mind the careful and ethical treatment of any human subjects. The only point where utilizing research ethics or an institutional review board in this sense within communication studies research would be in the area of critical or historical research methods. This course deals with quantitative and qualitative research, which always utilizes human subjects. The critical and historical methods for communication research looks at us usually analyzing in a communication artifact, so like a film, a song, a book, a speech, something of that nature, and where we're doing our own internal analysis looking at secondary resources to then draw some type of conclusion from what we're looking at. It doesn't use human subjects. So there is one area in communication research that does not use human subjects that would not be prone to utilizing this entire process of human research ethics training and an IRB. Now, that's not always the case, and so that's why we're spending a significant amount of time, a whole week devoted towards it in the course. So when we're looking at what types of projects that need ethical approval, we should keep that in mind and understand that there is a segment of communication research that does not require the use of ethical approval because it doesn't use human participants. It's utilizing a communication artifact, some type of communication print or media that's already out there, and we're just analyzing it. You'll get into that more in your rhetorical criticism class if you have not taken that already. So human participants, any project that utilizes it requires the ethical approval. The use of products of human participants often require that too. Animals require that, and work that potentially impacts human participants in some way, or where ethical approval is deemed necessary as a disclaimer by any person in the process with that. So typically, if it involves humans or animals in any sense, then you need to have ethical approval, and you'll need that NIH training. That's why we're spending time on this week, because the nature of this course would warrant that. I mentioned earlier informed consent. Informed consent is required for the researcher to provide this to all subjects that are volunteering to participate in your study. An informed consent works on and looks at giving the participant time to actually sit down and understand what this research project will entail and come from them. In the terms of a Likert scale survey that you may post on social media, it typically begins at the beginning saying you understand that you willfully and voluntarily consent to completing this research, and that anything that comes from this, you will not hold the researcher liable, and usually click a box. If it's a face-to-face or phone interview, usually you sign something. The informed consent really is a point for the researcher to state the purpose of the research and describe the procedures they'll use, describe any potential risks the participant may encounter as well as benefits, and also describe what will happen with the results. It's really important to know that it is required that all results are confidential. So anytime you conduct research and you use people where you interview them, you'll need to provide pseudonyms for them. And same thing with your surveys. You need to guard and safeguard that those research results to make sure that you have protected their identity and kept them confidential at all points within the study. It's important to give a list of the names that they may contact for who they may have questions with, and to clearly state that all participation is voluntary and they can choose to not participate at any time within the study. When you utilize informed consent with minors, it's typically a little more difficult. Consent must be obtained from the parents and guardians, and assent must also be obtained from the minors who are old enough or have enough intellectual capacity to say they do not or they would like to participate. So it's a two-folded response when it comes to that. It's important to know that you need your consent form signed by the parents, and then that you spend some time talking to the minors about what it means to participate in the study in some way or another. It does require a little extra help and work on your end, but it's not impossible to do. It's important to know that there's always a freedom to withdraw clause in your informed consent as well as within your study. Participants must be informed and must clearly know that they can withdraw their participation at any time without penalty from the study. That's part of the free will and part of the ethical consideration for human subjects in research studies that we all need to be aware of. And sometimes it's difficult for us as researchers to not understand, but to really deal with that when it happens. It's happened to me in numerous amounts of time that people just decided and said, you know what, I don't have enough time in my schedule. This is requiring too much time for me. I am not going to be able to complete or finish what you need me to do in the study, and there's nothing I can do about it, or you could do about it as a researcher. I had to kind of regroup, use what data I had from them, and then find another participant that could fully complete the study. If you have a power relationship with the participant, you must be extra careful to make sure they do know that they have freedom to withdraw. And what that means is somebody that is in a supervisory role or in some type of role where they can exert power or control over the person, and you're conducting the research, you need to let them know that that's completely voluntary and has nothing to do with the power relationship that exists. I know we've gone through a lot of information this week, and it's important for you to just kind of recap. We're reading Chapter 4 of the Creswell text, Step 5 of the Cornaglia text, watching some videos on research ethics, completing activity number 5, discussion board number 5, and our NIH training on human subjects. If you have any questions, let me know. All grades will be updated by the end of the week. The midterms will take me a little while to get through to provide you with some pertinent feedback on that. I've already looked at your sources in your source list, so now I'll just be looking at the quality of your actual review of them in the annotated bibliography. It is a good point at this point in the semester to schedule some time to chat with me about where you're at, and that's completely voluntary. You don't have to at all, but I do encourage it with all students. So please let me know if you'd like to schedule a time to chat by phone or in person, and I look forward to interacting with you later this week. Have a good week, and God bless.